Is Litecoin going to take over the world and become the global standard for all commerce? I'm Sam I Am, and we're going to talk about it. So in my last video, I put out a, kind of a report that, or study, a news article that pointed to a study that showed Litecoin development has fallen off. And I tweeted about that on Twitter, asking one of the developers, is this true? And, here's the graph showing, this is from 2015 all the way to January of 2018 or 19. So, it's really shown a steep decline, and there's, other data. Now, what they kind of came back with was, well, a lot of the development work is done. So now Litecoin is being developed in Bitcoin Core. So that's why, some of them have dropped off. One of the actual developers got back to me and said, if you look at it over the year, that it's 40 versus 44 the year before. And they're in a release candidate, RC1 right now of .17, and .18 hasn't even been announced yet. So that's why there's nothing going on. A lot of plausible reasons. But then at the same time, I've got other people saying, no, there still should be some commits, even if they're just tags going into the core code. So, and they're not. So yeah, is it falling? Is it not? All I can really say is just kind of keep watching it, and we'll see over time. But I had an interesting discussion here, and it's on Twitter. I'll put the link in the description. If anybody wants to go and read, some of the back and forth. Most of it was pretty civil and cordial. Some people were complete jerks as usual, but eventually we got to, well, why do you think Litecoin is going to, be the winner here? And I was pointed to this article. Now this is by Ilir Gashi, if I'm saying his name right, who's the same one who posted, he wrote an article, here we can go back here, explaining why the report, Defeating the FUD, Multicoin's report on Litecoin's use case. And he's, doing all these debunking things, and I think this is maybe the Tiffany Hayden of the Litecoin community. But here he's got 6 reasons why Litecoin is the best. So we're going to read these. I think this is a good way to approach it and kind of talk about it. And I'm going to kind of compare and contrast it with other coins in the space, and also talk about XRP and the ILP and XRPL, because I think that's an important discussion. I think that's something the Litecoin community really doesn't comprehend. So he starts off with his number one reason here, the duality of nature. And I'm not going to read this whole thing. Let me make it a little bit larger so you guys can kind of see. But essentially what he's talking about is gold and silver. So for those of you that weren't around when Litecoin first came out, the pitch was, well, Bitcoin is digital gold and Litecoin is digital silver. So you should hold some of both. And that was kind of, at the time, Litecoin was, I don't remember, I think it was like $2 or $3, and Bitcoin was 10, 15, somewhere in there. And that's what he's kind of going through here. And he's pointing out Bitcoin's 21 million, Litecoin's 84 million. They use different algorithms, which we'll get into mining. So one's Bitcoin's a GPU mining, whereas Litecoin's a CPU mining centric technology. The block time for Bitcoin versus Litecoin is, a factor of 4 difference. So Litecoin puts out more blocks, which means it can process more transactions per second than Bitcoin. But, we're going to talk about that. And they both work on the same sort of proof of work mining technology, which is a huge flaw. It's Bitcoin. It's the Napster of digital music is what proof of work is. And we're going to explain that. But right now, every block, so every 2.5 minutes, 25 Litecoins are released. Every 10 minutes, 25 Bitcoins are released to whoever produces the next block. And the problem with that, we'll get into it, is they're using a lot of resources in order to generate those blocks, and so that has to be sold. Okay, and then there's the dates. So he's showing, price comparison and so forth, and that's kind of his first point, which, okay, I guess, but how does that set it apart from Bitcoin Cash or any of the other Bitcoin forks? Because there's a lot of them out there. There's Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin this, that, and the other thing. And, none of them are really significantly different than the others, okay? Now he gets into mining, and he talks about CPUs versus GPUs, which I just showed you. And here's the problem with mining. So, these blocks are being produced, but in the case of Bitcoin, they're using enough electricity more electricity than a lot of small countries out there. So what happens is when those Bitcoins come out, they're immediately sold. So that new money that's coming into Bitcoin is constantly being sold to pay electricity bills. And over time, the block reward, as they call it, gets cut in half. Now, it's years out before it goes away, but I can't remember what I think it's 12 and a half now, whereas it used to be, 25 or whatever it was. And it will have again some years down the road. And when that happens, if the price is not high enough, then guess what? The miners are in trouble. And when Bitcoin dropped to below, I think it was about 5,000 that this started, it was apocalypse for a lot of the miners. I mean, here's some videos. Bitmain is one of the big miners. These are all the mining rigs. Every one of these little boxes here is about $2,000. Okay, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, $20,000 on that one little section of shelf there that's probably 6 feet, and you can see how many rows there are. And of course, 2 years later, those were obsolete. So a lot of them, their hash rate is so low that they're not even worth plugging in because they consume more electricity than revenue that they generate. So it is not, it's thin margins. And when the price crashes, this guy put out a video here that was just really sad. I mean, he built this business where he let people ship their mining rigs in. He rented the space, did the management of it, and charged a fee. And he built up these big water fans to keep it cool in this giant warehouse that he rented. And the price of Bitcoin crashed. Everybody pulled their rigs. His building emptied out, and he had to close it down. And it was curtains for him and his business. And there's been several of those. And that's because it's a very inefficient, expensive method, proof of work, where you're mining blocks in order doing all this work and consuming a lot of electricity to keep the network running. And guess what? When those block rewards come, eventually run out, now that's years down the road, but it's going to happen. Where are they going to get the money? Well, fees are going to go up. So, and let's look at that for a second here. I think I've got a diagram right there. So here is a comparison of speed, cost, scalability. So Litecoin's down here on the bottom. You can see it's 12 minutes for a transaction. The best one, of course, is XRP. It's 3 to 4 seconds generally between blocks. Eventually, that's going to become probably sub 1 second with the introduction of Cobalt. Bitcoin is 45 minutes. Ethereum's almost 5 minutes. BCC, I think that's Bitcoin Cash, is an hour. Dash is 15 minutes. Litecoin's 12 minutes. Okay, if you're ordering something online, 12, 15 minutes is probably fine. But if you're going to lunch and you're trying to pay for your lunch and get back to work, and you get the check, you pay it, and then you have to sit there for 12 minutes before the merchant gets your payment confirmed, that's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And Bitcoin's even worse. There's only one here that's even reasonably suited for commerce, for consumer level retail applications, and that's XRP. And that of course there's alternatives to this, that there's ways to speed it up. They're probably screaming, the Litecoin and Bitcoin fans, but Lightning Network. Well, let me tell you, Lightning Network has been 18 months from being ready to go since 2015. Okay, and it's still 18 months out from being ready to go. Last time I saw, when they said it was ready, any transaction over, I think it was $20, had a 90+% failure rate. So that is not a suitable solution for any kind of global payment system. There are Bitcoin maximalists out there who just think that Bitcoin's going to magically, without any company behind it, take over the banking system. And I'm sorry, that's just delusional. And Litecoin, that you get some of that same sentiment. Well, Litecoin's better because it has these advantages. Well, okay, let's look at those advantages. So their fee is 12 cents, which is, pretty good, unless you're streaming a movie or something and you're doing micropayments. Then 12 cents could be, a factor of 10 or 20 or 50 over what you're actually streaming for the content. So that's not going to work. Dash is 40 cents. Bitcoin Cash is 21 cents. Ethereum's about 50 cents. Bitcoin, it's saying, is $1.88, but when the network gets busy, those fees go to $20, and the wait times go to hours to days. I've had a transaction take more than 3 days. I mean, it was several days in the height of the last kind of boom cycle. And it gets ridiculous. It's not a viable solution. Now here's the other problem. And of course, XRP is, what was that, 400,000ths of a penny. So if you're streaming content and you're paying for streaming content, that's a very small fee that can be added on there. And of course, there's ways to batch that up and so forth and make it even cheaper. So Bitcoin, one of the big problems is the 16 transactions per second. So at the start of this current, I wouldn't even call it a bull run, but price rise, there were like 40 something thousand unconfirmed transactions in mempool waiting to be processed by the network at 16 transactions per second max. So, that's not even reasonable. Ethereum's the same. Bitcoin Cash, they went with the bigger block size and changed some things. So 24 transactions per second. Dash is at 10, and Litecoin's at 56, which is, in the group of all the other proof of work algorithms, it's not terrible. It would probably handle the retail traffic for like Iowa. Of course, it would get backlogged in the day and have to catch up every night and on weekends. But once you expand outside the size of a state like Iowa, then, it's not really feasible anymore. Oh, but Lightning Network, I know. But let's look at XRP. Right now, they're at 1,500 transactions per second. And they have payment channels, which have been around for a while. And they've tested those to 50,000. Now that's hardware bound, so they could add more computers and test it to 75 or 100,000. And, that seems like a much more feasible solution. Visa's network, I think, processes 50,000 TPS. So that's that's a good range, kind of ballpark to be in. And of course, you can set up multiple payment channels all over, add as much hardware as you need to make those happen. Very, very, very scalable compared to everything else out here. Okay. Let's go back. So that's the problem with mining, is you've got so much money coming out to pay to run the network, to mine the network. And when those rewards stop, the fees go up, and in a big way. And it's just going to be crazy. Now, I'm not against Bitcoin or Litecoin or any of these other proof of work algorithms. I just don't see them as the long-term solution that's going to replace the banking system as the maximalists would have us believe, be it Bitcoin or Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash or any of them. They're 1.0 technology. Okay. Let's keep going though. So the number 3 reason to use, or that Litecoin is so great, why Litecoin, here's 6 reasons, is that it's a Bitcoin test net. Okay. So what he points out here is that, SegWit was introduced on Litecoin first. It was controversial. They weren't sure if it was going to work. Bitcoin has test nets, but there's no dollars attached to those. So there's not as many hackers trying to hack the test net as there are the Bitcoin Live network. And Litecoin being a lower value, it's used as a test net to implement some of these features first. And, when I hear that, to me, that doesn't say, oh, man, that's where I want to store my money. Somebody that's using it to see if it's going to be hacked or not. Just that makes 0 sense to me. But they're saying, well, do you get new features first and this and that? But okay, but if you're testing them and they end up costing me money, that's not really not really an advantage as far as I see it. Okay. Number 4 in his list is atomic and submarine swaps. Now, an atomic swap means if you have multiple entities in a payment chain that the whole payment goes through or none of it goes through. So it's a all or nothing kind of deal. Nobody can halt the payment and keep the funds and walk away with the money. So it's a good feature. It's something that that Ripple's had implemented since I think 2015-ish, maybe 16. So, they just got around to it last year or the year before with SegWit. Great job, guys. And submarine swaps is something kind of along those same lines. I guess they're used in conjunction. And what he's pointing out here is that if you've got a vendor with a submarine swap, you get this special wallet. And if you have a vendor who only accepts Bitcoin, then you can send your Litecoin and they will get an invoice in Bitcoin. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Okay, that's great. But Ripple wrote this thing called RippleNet, and then they handed it over. They realized if this is going to be the global standard, we've got to include more people into the mix here. And so they took RippleNet, rebranded it the Interledger Protocol, ILP, and they handed it over to a little organization called the W3C, which is the standards body for the internet. And what the ILP does is it uses atomic swaps, and it uses something called payment pointers. Now, a payment pointer is, I have one for my channel. It's a text string that I can send to somebody or embed in code. And all I would have to do is set up how I want to get paid. So if somebody, and the ILP is really the glue that connects all of these disparate Bitcoin, Litecoin networks, cryptocurrency networks together and allows them to interoperate. That's why it's the Interledger Protocol. It sort of brings them all together and allows them all to interoperate. So if I'm a vendor or something, I'm selling something, it doesn't matter if somebody wants to send me fiat or cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Tron, XRP, whatever, it doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter what I want to receive those funds in. I can set it to say, I only want Bitcoin, I only want Litecoin, I want XRP, I want stocks, I want barrels of oil, I want diamonds. It doesn't matter. You can get paid in whatever you want because the ILP, or basically the XRPL, allows you to have gateways. And essentially what those do is they allow you to sort of they'll issue you a token and you can redeem that with them for some kind of physical asset, a stock, a barrel of oil, a cryptocurrency, whatever it is. So, by having all of that, this is a complex topic, so I hope you guys are following. But essentially, with a payment pointer, you can specify this is how I want to get paid. And then the XRP ledger, XRPL, which is it's a decentralized exchange that's built into the XRP protocol, the network that runs XRP. So that's something that I think a lot of people also don't understand about Ripple and why it's such a leap above anything else that's out there. You can issue anything you want on the XRPL, and so if somebody wants to send you, if somebody wants to represent gold and issue credits for that, they can do that, and you can trade it, and you can create rippling relationships where it can get really complex. I don't want to turn this into a XRPL class or anything, but essentially there's so much more flexibility there than people realize that enables this kind of send whatever you want, get whatever you want capability. And Litecoin guys are sitting here saying, well, you can swap Litecoin for Bitcoin. There you go, problem solved. And while Ripple has already set up a network where you can swap literally anything that somebody represents on the blockchain for anything else somebody represents on the blockchain. And it doesn't matter. It all happens behind the scenes. The network finds the most efficient exchange possible that exists, and it just works in the background. So, okay, great. That's not, you guys doing Bitcoin to Litecoin is not really a significant advantage that sets Bitcoin in a class apart from everybody else in the space. And I'm not saying Bitcoin's terrible at all, or Litecoin is terrible. They're 1.0 technology. In terms of digital music, Napster, they're still around. You can still go and set up an account on Napster.com, and you can, look at this, play unlimited music to power your brand. How many of you in the last month or year have been to Napster.com or used their service? And now let me ask you, how many of you have used Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, Google Music, any of the other streaming music services that are out there? And I bet that's probably people that have gone here, probably less than 1%, and it's probably more than 90% that have used one of those music services. That's because this was 1.0 technology. It was groundbreaking. It was amazing. I was one of the early users, but now there's so many more options out there that are far superior to Napster. It doesn't mean Napster has gone away. It's still here. Bitcoin is still going to be around, and Litecoin's still going to be around years from now. But are people going to be using it, or are they going to be using 2.0? And XRP is 2.0. Okay. And the reason is because it functions in a different way. It doesn't. So let's go back to proof of work for just a minute. There's this thing called the 51% attack, where if you have more than 51% of the miners mining the blocks, then you can basically rewrite history and give yourself somebody else's coins. XRP doesn't work that way. It uses consensus. And if you don't get any rewards for running a node. In fact, the fees that are paid to XRP actually get burnt. So by its nature, XRP is a deflationary currency because a small portion, these 0.0004 cents per transaction right now gets burned and destroyed. So if you are running a node, you're doing it because you have a vested interest in the network. And right now there are universities running validators. There are, Microsoft is running one, Amazon's running one. There are all kinds of banks running validators. The list goes on and on. They're spread out all over the world. They're across all different entities or industries. And so it's a very different landscape. If you want to make a change to the code, it has to be approved by, I think, 80% of the node operators. So for, like one industry to want to take the network in a certain direction, it's not going to fly, because you have such a diverse user base and group of people running the validators. It would be nearly impossible to hijack the network. Whereas with Bitcoin, any government with the resources could do it. China, they've got more than 51% of the mining power. If the government comes in and orders the two companies over there running the miners to, do this attack, well, guess what? They're going to do that attack, and that will be that. With XRP, that doesn't exist because it doesn't use proof of work. It burns the fees. The people running the network do so because they have a vested interest in using it, not profiting from it. And with every one of these other ones in the list, they're all running the network because they profit from it. And that means the new money coming in gets burned to run the network and goes into these miners' pockets. And when that runs out, guess what? The network becomes far more vulnerable because a lot of those miners are going to close up shop, period. Okay, adoption. Litecoin is one of 3 cryptocurrencies to be listed on every major exchange and wallet offering. Okay, I bet XRP's in there too, but whatever. This makes Litecoin highly accessible and liquid to get in and out. Same is true of Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, a lot of these. Litecoin processes 1 billion in volume daily, so does XRP generally. Works as global decentralized sound money today. Okay, but so does Bitcoin, so does Bitcoin Cash. So, that's not, it doesn't really differentiate itself from this very crowded field. Oh, and it can't be reversed or taken away or counterfeited, and it can't be devalued. Well, if the price crashes, it gets devalued. And that's true of all of them, even XRP. So, he's saying, well, Litecoin has spent 7 years successfully integrating and getting getting use cases out there and getting people to adopt it. You can sell thousands on a specific exchange and not crash the market. Okay, great. You can do that with, most of the cryptocurrencies out there, especially in the top 10. So again, what's the differentiator? Why is Litecoin going to be so much better and going to just run away with it all, guys? That's what I'm asking here. They're saying, 9 new merchant processors and 5 debit card providers. Okay, well, I bet if you went through this list, most of these would also be on XRP. I know Wirex, it has an XRP card, so does Revolt. Let's see, Coin Payments, they process for Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash. It's about a dozen cryptocurrencies. They're incented to add as many as they can, technically. So again, what's the differentiator? And of course, XRP has been integrated with WooCommerce, so all of these small payment processors and open source shopping carts and stuff that websites use can now accept Bitcoin, XRP. The list goes on. So that's where it ends. He's saying it's continues to grow globally with a focus towards mainstream adoption, and I'm sorry, I just don't see it. Proof of work is the Napster of digital music. It's the 1.0 of cryptocurrency, and XRP, for a number of different reasons, is 2.0. And it's just getting started. What you'll be able to do with XRP 5 years down the road is far different than what you'll be able to do today. But I think that gets lost. The whole concept of the Interledger Protocol and the decentralized built-in exchange, XRPL, and how you can create assets and represent those assets and exchange them for whatever you want. It's granted it's not there today, but the capability and the functionality is built in. And so as the ecosystem develops, it becomes more and more useful, that in a way that, really just doesn't even compare with, where'd it go? With what we're seeing here, where they're talking about submarine swaps that'll let you swap between 2, Bitcoin and Litecoin. Okay, that's great, but what if I've got Ethereum? What if I've got bananas? Whatever it is. So that's why I don't see Litecoin succeeding and becoming this global standard. If you look at what Ripple's done, they've got connections, and they're having meetings with the World Bank, with the IMF, with hundreds, and they have over 200 banks already signed up using RippleNet. Now that's mostly for Xcurrent, which doesn't leverage XRP yet. Of course, the bankers are conservative. They don't want to get fired. They don't want to get fined and fired and their career ended. So they're kind of held hamstrung by regulation, as the entire crypto industry is currently. But the functionality is there so that when they're comfortable and they want to save another 40% on their cross-border payments, they can change the setting in the code or in a config file, and all of a sudden it will start utilizing XRP. The functionality is already built in to Xcurrent, to Xrapid. If you don't even know what those are, and you're sitting running around talking about how Litecoin's going to take over the world or Bitcoin's going to take over the world, man, you need to rethink your premise, folks, because none of those organizations have a business who's going out there talking to banks, interfacing with the current system to bridge it all together and make it all function and interoperate. Now, that doesn't mean that XRP is going to be the only one. There will always be specific use cases where different coins fit in. I like the Holo project and what they're doing, building the decentralized internet, and they have a hot token that is basically kind of a closed loop to fund the hosting providers to make the whole thing work. So the hot token, I think, is going to be used there. I can't see XRP making its way to take that ecosystem over. There's Casino Coin, where they basically do the KYC, AML. They kind of decentralize KYC and AML checks, and then your wallet gets certified, and then you just go to any gambling or gaming site and use it. And the companies who accept Casino Coin don't have to bother with KYC, AML. I think there's potential there. And the list goes on. There's privacy. XRP is not private at all. And we need a strong privacy coin where you can't see your transactions and balances, where other people can't see your transactions and balances. Monero, I think, is the leader in the space. A lot of people like Apollo, but I think it tries to be everything, and I just don't see that project succeeding over the long term. Monero is really, I think, the leader currently, but I like what Elixir's doing. I think they are going to blow away. They're going to be Monero's 1.0. It's a proof of work algorithm as well. Elixir is going to be Privacy Coin 2.0. And I think it's going to be a very, very successful project. And I would expect it to be in the top 3, maybe top 5 coins over the next few years, because it has a specific use case, and XRP will bridge them all, will interoperate all of them and make it work. And that's what a lot of these Bitcoin, Litecoin, Xcoin, whatever your coin is, maximalists fail to understand and comprehend, is that Bitcoin will be XRP and ILP will be the glue that builds all this together. So when you need to change between them, XRP is going to be the go-to asset. Okay, long one. Hope that made some sense and explained some things. I did my best. I'll catch you guys next video.